Hey everyone, it's Christian Butzek, Vancouver Realtor, and the topic of today's video is predictions about Vancouver's real estate market. I want to run through a couple of predictions, big predictions that we saw, one last summer and one before that. And then I want to compare those with reality. So let's do that. And what I'm going to do to start, and the reason why I want to do that too, is because predictions are like opinions. It seems everyone has one. Your neighbor has one, your uncle has one, your friends down the hall have one. Everybody seems to have an opinion or a prediction about real estate markets, about stock markets. And the truth is, nobody really knows. The greatest investors in the world tell us they don't know. Warren Buffett says, hey, I don't know. And by extension, I don't think you know either. So nevertheless, I did a little bit of research and I want to pull up a graph here that you're going to see on your page. Actually, it's the front page of Maclean's magazine. You can see this here. It says, inside the great real estate crash of 2013. Who will get hit the hardest? Interesting. This is a very reputable magazine, one of the biggest in the country. And this is on the front page of their magazine. This was in 2013, of course. Now just imagine you are Joe and Jane Public and you see something like that. And you don't only see that in the magazines, you might see that online. You might see that in a blog. You might see that in the newspapers, on the nightly news. There's always predictions. And if you had followed this prediction in the housing market, you'd be out $1 million. Because what have homes done since 2013? Well, since 2013, if you bought a home, the average house price was a little less than $1 million. And today, it's a little less than $2 million. I mean, if you sat on the sidelines because you were worried about this kind of news, it affected you, you're at $1 million over the last 8 years. And I have met people like this at my open houses. And I think they just can't discern the difference between predictions and reality. And I'm going to show you reality in a minute. But what does happen is this kind of negative news, these headlines, they grab your attention. They sell. You're more likely to pick up this magazine. And if you saw this online, you'd more likely to click it. They call it clickbait for a reason, right? This kind of bad news really does attract people. So you got to take it with a grain of salt, okay, when you see that. I want to take you now to the second prediction. And this came from a Crown Corporation last spring, right? It was after the coronavirus. The Canada Mortgage Housing Corporation, called CMHC, came out with this prediction about home prices. And they based it on the fact that they foresaw an increase in mortgage delinquencies, people not paying their mortgage. And here you can see the quote, the headline here says, housing prices will dip but recover in 2021. But here's the kicker. Our forecasts indicate the average price will decline by 9 to 18%. That's a huge number. A 9 to 18% downturn in the market. I mean, that is significant. And if you were banking on this to happen, you've obviously really missed out on a huge buying opportunity last spring when everything was quiet. That prediction is so wrong that it's off, I would say, by about 35% at this point. I mean, that is insane. How can you be 35% off in your prediction? This is, folks, economists were working on this, professionals. I believe if you actually download the report, there was 8 of them working on this report. Presumably they have MBAs, economics degrees. I would think they understand this stuff a whole lot better than I do and than you do. Obviously they don't. So when we're reading about predictions from the best of economists, I personally, I don't believe it, because I don't think you can forecast the future, right? 18 months ago, who would have guessed that we would have had a coronavirus epidemic? Sure, we heard some news about this late December in China, that was right in 2019. But we could not predict what the fallout was going to be. And we certainly couldn't know that March, April, and May of 2020 would that the province would shut down, that the country would shut down. We couldn't have foreseen these things. And obviously prices stalled and actually came back about 5-10%, on houses and so on. And then from that point, from the doom and gloom of spring 2020, Corona 2020, to come to where we are now, where townhouse prices, detached home prices are up 15-20% in pockets of Greater Vancouver. No one could have predicted these things. So these predictions, you really got to take them with a grain of salt, okay? I really want you to take that away from this video, is when you read about predictions, don't believe it, okay? What you want to look at, if you're going to look and study anything, is study long-term trends. For example, what's our population growth going to be like? What are the number of immigrants that the federal government allows into the country every year? Well, we know, for example, the federal government is going to increase that number to 400 or even 500,000 to make up for lost 2020, right? When they closed the borders. Well, what's that going to do? A lot more people are going to be coming into Vancouver, into Toronto, where most immigrants will settle for jobs and for lifestyle here in Vancouver, right? So you got to remember those types of things. And of course, obviously, you can tell that the mortgage rates are still really low when you compare them over the last 40-45 years. I mean, just ask people who are getting mortgages. They're getting 1.9, 1.8% mortgages. So when money is that cheap, hey, people are going to go out and buy homes. Now, obviously, if the mortgage rates go up to 4, 5, 6%, that's going to change the equation, right? But again, I want you to take away from this video that you just can't make predictions, okay, about it. And when you hear economists talking about it, with a grain of salt. Last graph I want you to see here. This is accessible to the public. You could just Google Real Estate Board of Greater Vancouver monthly stats. It's all right there for you. This shows you the actual real price changes in the Greater Vancouver area since 1977. You can see the blue line there is the prices of detached houses, and of course it's going nothing but up. The red line represents townhouses, and that has been going nothing but up. And of course condos have started to recover as well. Folks, that's really what you want to pay attention to. And the reason I have that graph there for you is to show you that over the long term, you're going to be just fine. And that's really what real estate is about. I mean, first off, it's a home. It's a home for you and your family, for your kids, right? That's what you want, your own home. You want to be paying down your own mortgage. And second of all, if you give this time, you are going to be just fine. I've heard enough stories about the couple. She's a kindergarten teacher. He's a plumber. They bought a house on the west side in 1983, and today it's worth, $2.5 million or $3 million, for example. These things happen when you own homes for 30 years. Your home, and in Vancouver, prices often double in 15-year increments. So folks, the way to wealth here is long-term ownership. I know it's not sexy. it maybe seem a little bit boring, but this is the guaranteed way to, a good life, to independence and, financial freedom in your 60s and in your 70s. But it does take patience, and you've got to give it time. So pay attention to what's really happening. Look at those long-term trends, especially. I think that is going to be your best indicator about where prices will really go in the future. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up or just subscribe. We'd love your comments below, and we'll see you next time.